The book of Adam and Eve is not something you're going to find in any traditional Bible. It's a story that describes what happened to Adam and Eve after they left the Garden of Eden. It's another one of those extra-biblical books that modern Christians say has no relevance in biblical canon. In truth, the book was written around the same time as many other biblical texts, a few hundred years before Christ, and it simply extends the story of the first two humans on earth. The first important event in the book is when Cain murders his brother Abel. The book claims that Cain and Abel both had twin sisters, meaning Adam and Eve had 4 kids, not just 2. Cain fell in love with his own twin, but Adam and Eve wanted Cain to marry Abel's twin. Furious, Cain murdered his brother, and the rest of the book discusses how the family tried to deal with it. It goes into some pretty gruesome detail. When the blood of Abel touched the earth, the planet trembled. Cain kept trying to bury his brother, but the grave kept spitting out Abel's body. Adam and Eve eventually took the body of Abel into a cave and laid it there to rest. The Book of Giants is by far one of the most exciting and fantastical forbidden books of the Bible. It's set in the days before the flood, known as the antediluvian time. Its main characters are giants, angels, monsters, and a man named Enoch. It was discovered in fragments during the 1940s as part of the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's a true document and was written prior to the birth of Christ. The Book of Giants says that angelic beings known as Watchers were ordered by God to watch over the earth. While they were watching, they became fascinated by human women. These angelic beings then abandoned their posts and bred with human women, which led to the creation of monstrous abominations called Nephilim. The book details how the giants knew it wasn't their fault, and yet their existence was an atrocity anyway. They even had dreams of the coming flood and their inevitable demise. The giant named Mahaweh eventually sought help from Enoch, who told him that the giants needed to stop being so sinful. But the giants didn't want to end their wicked ways, and so they were all wiped out by the flood. The Watchers, who couldn't be killed by a little bit of water, were then rounded up by angels and locked up forever in a dark prison. If you're interested in a Bible that has it all, you need to switch from the King James Bible to the Ethiopic Bible. The King James Version, used by most people in the Western world, contains only 64 books. The Ethiopic Bible, on the other hand, has 84 books. This is because it includes most of the texts that have been lost or rejected by other churches. In Ethiopia, there is a Bible protected in a remote mountain monastery 800 years older than the King James Bible. This ancient version contains 88 books, including all 3 books of Maccabee and the highly controversial Book of Enoch. It's believed to be one of the earliest illustrated Christian books in the world, called the Garima Gospels. According to the legends, the ancient Bible was named after a monk who arrived in Ethiopia in the 5th century. The monk then wrote the massive book in just one day, because God stopped the sun from setting. Biblical scholars have recently discovered the very first known copy of an ancient forbidden text written in Greek. This text describes the secret teachings of Jesus Christ to his biological brother, James. The discovery was made by Jeffrey Smith and Brent Landau at the University of Texas. They found it in the Oxford University archives, where it had been buried for centuries. The texts come from the 6th century AD and were part of an ancient collection of religious writings known as the Nag Hammadi Library. The texts from the library were found in 1945, buried in Egypt. They complete a collection of 13 Coptic Gnostic books, known by some as the Gnostic Gospels. These were the holy books used by Gnostic Christians who believed in a more mystical Christianity. They were more about the spirit and the cosmos than a wrathful God. However, most of their books were banned by the church because they were seen as heretical or blasphemous. At least 13 Gnostic books were deemed forbidden and largely lost to history. The new pieces of text that were discovered come from the Gnostic book called the First Apocalypse of James. The document is shocking because it describes the teachings Jesus shared with his brother James. It discusses things like the heavenly realm outside our own reality and inevitable death. These teachings were much more mystical than the ones you find in the New Testament, which was exactly why they were erased by the church. New research just might change what we know about the early history of Christianity and Judaism. According to scientists from Tel Aviv University, a new discovery proves the Hebrew Bible was written much earlier than anyone realized. The research also suggests that in the Kingdom of Judah 2,600 years ago, there was a shockingly high level of literacy. Researchers used cutting-edge computerized image processing to analyze a collection of ink inscriptions found at the remote fort of Arad. They were able to determine that the Hebrew Bible was written prior to the destruction of Jerusalem in 586 BC. Scraps of text found at the edge of the Kingdom of Judah show that the Hebrew Bible dates to at least the 7th century BC. Their research also proved that the Hebrew Bible was written by at least 6 people. This shatters the notion put forth by the Church that Moses was the author of the Hebrew Bible. By analyzing the wording, phrasing, handwriting, and other tiny details, the computers solved the mystery. They were able to see what ordinary eyes could not: the faintest signatures of 6 like-minded authors. Researchers at the university believe there was a group of literate individuals in Judah who began work on what would become the most important book in history. But it wasn't until the fall of Jerusalem 200 years later that the book was finished and widely distributed. The Apocalypse of Adam was found among the forbidden texts of the Nag Hammadi library in 1945. It deals with the first man God created, Adam. On Adam's 700th birthday, he tells his son Seth about his life when he and Eve first met. Adam describes how he and Eve were even more powerful than their creator, a primeval entity called Yaldabaoth. This was the name of the Gnostic creator god, a serpent deity not unlike Satan himself. According to the Gnostics, he was the super-powerful being that created human life. He sent rays of light from the heavens into the humans' bodies to give them souls. But Yaldabaoth was envious and mean. He tried to limit the knowledge of his human creations by imposing nasty rules upon them. When Adam and Eve broke the rules, Yaldabaoth split them into 2 different genders, male and female, and promised them one day they would be forced to die. It goes on to talk about hidden knowledge that Adam received from 3 mysterious men. Adam claims that the sub-creator God, the celestial being beneath Yaldabaoth, will try to destroy humanity by sending a global flood to wipe them out. Adam also says that after the flood, God will give the earth to Noah, and that Noah's sons will inhabit the world. Humanity will then be forced to serve God in fear and slavery for the rest of time. The Apocalypse of Lamech is a mysterious ancient religious text discovered the year after the Gnostic texts were found in Egypt. It's one of the original 7 Dead Sea Scrolls that were uncovered in 1946 in Israel. The book is composed entirely in Aramaic, with only 4 sheets of leather remaining. It's one of the least preserved Dead Sea Scrolls that we have, and so piecing together its contents proved difficult for researchers. The text was eventually deciphered as a conversation between Lamech and his son Noah. So far as experts are aware, there's only 1 copy in existence of this book. Roland Devaux, a French Dominican priest who worked very closely with the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, believes the Apocalypse of Lamech might be the original authored copy. It was likely written by the mystical sect of Jews known as the Essenes. They were a group of people who believed they were put on earth to prepare the world for the coming of Jesus. Weirdly enough, they existed from between the 2nd century BC until shortly after Jesus' death and resurrection in the 1st century. Some say the Essenes had secret knowledge of Jesus' coming and had hidden the Dead Sea Scrolls on purpose for future generations to find. It appears to be extra-biblical writing, meaning it adds relevance to other stories in the Bible. This particular book adds more information about Abram's terrible treatment of Sarai in Egypt. It adds the fact that Abram was told by God to lie to the Pharaoh about Sarai being his sister, when in reality she was his wife. The cult of Christianity may have first emerged as an offshoot of the Roman cult of Mithras, which preceded Christianity by at least 600 years. Mithras was adopted by the Romans, taken from ancient Persia and transformed into one of the most popular deities of the Roman Empire. The worship of Mithras peaked in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, at around the same time that Christianity was becoming popular. There's a possibility that the Mithras cult's ideologies and lore leaked into those of Christianity, or that they even spawned the story of Jesus themselves. The issue is that we have no written text describing the belief system of the Mithraic cult, and so the exact nature of Mithras is extremely mysterious. What we do know is that the god was supposedly born from solid rock and acted as an intermediary between the humans and the other gods. Mithras also supposedly had 12 disciples, which represented the 12 signs of the zodiac. Some scholars believe Jesus' own 12 disciples were meant to be representations of the zodiac as well, yet another tie between Christianity and paganism. The Romans worshipped Mithras in underground temples. At the same time, Christians were starting to convert individuals belonging to the highest levels of society. Christianity eventually smothered the worship of Mithras, and the cult has been a mystery ever since.